Welcome to Sportsbet Daily at oddsmarket.com. I've got James, I've got Snize, so that means tennis. These boys are absolute wizards. We even had Snize last week in Sweden doing his videos, doing his Michael Jackson impression from the Jackson 5. Absolutely loved it. We're going to go to Zhuhai, first of all, in China. The women are there. And I want to come to you first, Snize. Different type of format.
Yeah, so we have recovered from our exertions going to Stockholm, reporting live there. It was great, obviously, seeing all these players perform that close up and that intimate. But yeah, now we're back to China, and we're approaching the end of the year now. The WTA Tour is officially over, and we're really in the closing stages now. We're going to have 2 year-ending championships. This is the Elite Trophy, which consists of the best 11 players in the world that did not qualify for the year-ending championship in Shenzhen, which is the big one for the top 8. So the format here is, as you said, a little bit different. They're doing round robins, meaning that the 12 players here, the 11 best, and plus one wild card, they are split into 4 groups of 3 players. And each player plays the other once. And the best player in the group advances to the semifinals. And from there on in, it's, as per usual, the single elimination format. So a little bit interesting here. In case we have tiebreakers, they're sorting it by number 1, the greatest number of wins. Number 2 is the greatest number of matches played, because there are withdrawal scenarios and alternate scenarios and the such that come into this. If we have a 2-way tie, they go on the head-to-head records. And if it's a 3-way tie, they go percentage of set ones, then head-to-head, then percentage of games ones, and then head-to-head again. So yeah, that's the format here.
Okay, James, when you look at this type of format and you have a selection and they get beat, normally, or they get beat in their first game, then normally that's it, they're going home, they've packed their bags. But in this scenario, you can actually have the winner of the tournament possibly lose the first game.
Yeah, I can't actually remember if we've had that recently in either men's or women's, if we've had someone lose their first match and then go on to win. But yeah, as you say, one of the only formats where you can still do that. And I guess you have to make a judgment about whether that first match was just a one-off, whether it was a bad matchup, or if they are actually fine, you know.
Okay, Snize, obviously let's rewind the clock just a few days and you was there courtside and seeing things. Does it change your perception of a player when you see them so close?
Yeah, it definitely does, because you see so many things and experience so many things that you don't see through a TV screen. You can see their body language up close. You can see the small nuances, like the body language is about 70% of our communication. You can see if they're getting slightly annoyed at themselves. You can see if they're firing themselves up. You can see like the small little clenched fists. You can see the fist bumps. You can see the reaction when they turn to their box, if they're looking dejected, if they're looking inspired. You can hear things a lot better. Obviously, courtside, there are a lot of things that you don't hear when you watch it on TV. Sometimes you can get like a massive roar that the TV don't show you. And there are just a lot of things. You just see the game better in general when you're that close to how it flows. So a lot of advantages watching tennis live.
Okay, well, let's kick off as we normally do. We're going to go with the outrights. I'm going to stay with you, Snize, for these outrights. James, you just be patient. Your turn will come. I know you're a little bit tired, so I'm going to save your energy. Okay, let's kick off here. And this is this was my selection as well when I looked at the groups. I thought this girl's got every single chance. Sabalenka at 6, Snize.
Yeah, so Aryna Sabalenka, the Tiger, as she is known as. She's had another great year on tour. She's won 2 titles, and it's just something about China that seems to bring the best out of Sabalenka. 3 out of her 5 career titles have come on Chinese soil. That includes defending her Wuhan title, becoming the first one to do so last month. And she possesses just an incredibly powerful game that can blast anyone off the court if she's on. And controlling that power and aggression obviously becomes the key to success there. But she did prove that she can do it, and she's been drawn in a pretty nice group here. She's been drawn in the group Rose, which I think she will win. And honestly, if she's on her game, I don't think anyone in this field can beat her. And she's certainly been that in China. The fans even call her the daughter of China because of her success here. So it's a bit of a special relationship. Definitely my favorite to win.
No, yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I know you say about the groups. Well, we're going to go on to the next one. Madison Keys at 7.5. Now, tough group. She got beaten straight sets in the first one against wildcard Zhang. No surprise that Zhang got the wild card.
Yeah, no, it's obviously often most you get a local Chinese player that gets this last wild card out of the top 11, and then a wild card because obviously it's a home tournament. The Chinese love their players. The Chinese players love to play at home. So we've usually seen these wild cards, and obviously Zheng Zhuhai won her maiden title in San Jose earlier in the year and exhibited really good form on slower hard courts, and she's shown that she was up to the task playing here. Keys did not, unfortunately, look that good in that match, so we're just going to have to hope that she pulls herself together. We need her to beat Petra Martic convincingly, and we then need Martic to win against Zheng Zhuhai and then have some tiebreaker luck go our way there. So Keith isn't dead and buried yet, but definitely a tough start for the outright here.
Yeah, was she beat 4-4? Was she? I think
she was beat 4-1 or 4-2 even.
Was it?
Yeah, 4-2. 4-2.
Oh,
yeah.
okay. So I mean, she's got a lot of work to make up. Okay, and the last one, big price this Machova at 11.
Yeah. So as I've gone through the groups here, I've looked at who I think will reach the semifinals. So my prediction was that Kiki Bartins was going to reach the semifinals from the first group. She won her first match against Vekic and looks set to do so. I predicted Mushova to go out from the second group. I predicted Keys and then Sabalenka from the other groups. But the Muchova's group is really interesting because Sofia Kenin has been made a big favorite. And I don't really see why, because I think this is the closest group out of them all. The 20-year-old American, she has had a great year on tour. She's made back-to-back semifinals in Toronto and Cincinnati, among others. She's a really skilled counterpuncher. But I just think that this is just so close and so tough to call. I think Karolina Mushova has been fantastic. She's shown that she has a fantastically varied game. She beat Karolina Pliskova notably in Wimbledon. Earlier in the year, she won her maiden title in Seoul. I think she's the form player in this field. And I just think that she has all the tools to come through this tight group. And obviously then being almost twice the price of the market leaders, she's a very valuable position to have later on in the tournament.
Yeah. Obviously, the Mushova at 11. Rafa? Mushova at 11? There you go. And that's a really big price because there's only 12 players in the tournament at the start. 4 sets of 3. 1 from each goes through, and then they play in the semi-finals. Now, James, I'm going to come to you. We're looking at Zhuhai best bet early on, and we've got Kenin and Risk over 20.5 games at 1.81.
Yeah, so as Snize says, this is probably the tightest group, and this is a very tight match. So Kenin's the slight favourite for this match, but realistically, it's a very, very 50-50 encounter. I probably would give Kenin a slight edge, but I certainly think for at least the initial part of the match, it's very likely to look even. Risk is the one that's best for the overbets. She very regularly will push the top players when she's this kind of price. So of her last 25 matches in this price range, which is 2 to 2.99, 19 of them have gone over this mark of 20.5 games, including 9 of her last 10. So very compelling stats. In essence, if you watch her, she's just able to compete with them, but she's not going to blast them off the court. She tends to be able to just really keep up with the better players, push them, make them have to work their best. And that's what I'd expect again here. Kenin, again, quite supportive in terms of the stats. 30 of her last 50 priced 1.5 to 1.99. So again, the price range that she is in now have gone over the over games mark. So again, both of those stats are implying, I mean, for Risk, it's 76%. For Kenin, that's 60%. And we're getting odds implying 55%. So I think realistically, either way, it's definitely a value price on a match that I think is just very likely to go long. Indoors is, of course, second quickest surface behind the grass. And even if it's not that fast, the conditions will be nice for playing. So it should at least mean that we have two players who are both very motivated in perfect playing conditions.
James, is there any value in the first set tiebreaker?
Yeah, so this is I think with possibly, I think for me, this is not the kind of matchup where I'm necessarily expecting tie breaks. I actually sent, for private subscribers, I sent tie-breaking match in the Bertens Vekic match because those two are much more inclined towards specifically tie breaks. I think it probably is a nice price. I've not actually checked the price of that. I assume it'll be about 3.4, 3.5. But that is quite a nice price, and it's probably worth a bet as well if you wanted to. But I think with this particular matchup, I do prefer the over.
And I suppose you don't really need to go near the tiebreaker, because if you get the tiebreaker in the first one, then you're on your way to being over 20.5 anyway. So you've always got it covered. And also you could have like 6-3, 6-3, 6-3, and you're going to be just as happy to get over that 20.5. Snize, Yamstrenka, minus 2.5 at 1.85.
Yeah, just to weigh in a little bit on the James, but I'm also on that. So you guys, it's when we agree on something, you should lock it in, because usually a pretty good position. Just to weigh in a little bit on the stats there. Since Kenin became a top 50 player, she has eclipsed this line in 12 out of her 13 matches, and risks last 21 matches against the top 20. This line has gone over in 16 out of 21, so very supportive. I'm expecting a long matchup there. So overs for me. So going on to Diana Yastremska, she's going to face Donna Vekic, who played already today. She lost against Kiki Bertens in strict sets. And I'm a bit concerned about Vekic lately. She's had a great year. She's a talented young Croatian, but she's really, really fallen off as the season has progressed. She has lost a lot of matches. She's lost 6 out of her last 7 now. And she also took an medical timeout in her match against Kiki Bertens after losing the first set tiebreaker. She had previously collapsed from 3-1 up in that set, and it was a lower back issue, and she really seemed to struggle badly in the second set. She fell away entirely, went 5-0 down, and in the end lost that 6-2. So poor form, poor physical condition. Diana Yastremska comes in here really confident. She's a young, big hitting Ukrainian. She's extremely confident, and she has a completely fearless attitude. And she's the type of player, when she's on the song, she can hit through anyone. And it will be especially tough for Vekic, who doesn't have the same amount of power if she's not on her game to contend against that. And just looking at the stats here, the Ukrainian has slightly better stats across the board, and I think that Vekic is just in a really bad position here. She might be looking at saying goodbye to Zhuhai and ending her season. Yastremska comes in confident, and I think she'll win this one.
And it's not uncommon for tennis players to have that, when they have that long, hard season, they start early, they try and concentrate on the majors, they try and get themselves right up in the world rankings. And then it's the same with any professional sportsman. They hit that lull and they do fall off a cliff, and it's just exhaustion, mental exhaustion, and it happens to anyone. But when you see it, you fade. And it's as simple as that. Any sport, you see it in golfers. If they're not on their game, and they're not on their game mentally, and they've got a little twitch or a twinge, then you fade. Yamstrenka minus 2.5 at 1.85. Okay, that's China. Let's move over to Switzerland, the ATP at Basel, or Basel, whatever you want to know. And obviously, we can't talk about a Swiss tennis tournament without talking Roger Federer. James, the greatest player in your book ever played a game?
Yeah, definitely. Well, I mean, I'm a huge Federer fan. I'd definitely pick him over the other big three. So, yeah.
But I mean, so when you first got into tennis, was Federer the reason you got into tennis, or do you still look back at maybe your McEnroe, your Borg, your Sampras?
No, I'm not old enough for that. My dad got me into tennis when I was about 5, 6, and then when I became old enough to be conscious of what I was doing with these things, I realized that I had a single-handed backhand. So did Federer. Federer was easily the most appealing player to watch of the big three. I always thought he was a lot classier than Novak, etc. So, yeah, that was why for me.
Okay, and 2.5 on the outrights for Federer to win again.
Yeah, so this is a tournament where Federer has broken a bunch of records. Most obviously, it's the most titles anyone has ever won at a single event. And I think Federer is basically, every time he plays this event, he goes well, even when he's not been in the very best form. He's played, the last 12 times he's played it, he's made the final. And he just decided not to play it in 2016. Of course, he wasn't fit. So it's the kind of situation where we know Federer's not been playing his best tennis. He's especially recently struggled against Zverev, and that was not a great match. He was quite clearly, visibly agitated a lot of the match, and it's difficult to say if that's just a one-off. Doesn't really feel like it. It does feel like there's a general decline, but he still plays well in Basel. He played very well in his first round, where he took Gajosek to bits. So it's the kind of match, it's the kind of tournament where I'm basically betting on that trend continuing, on Federer feeling good here, on Federer feeling like, essentially, and especially in his half, there shouldn't be a major threat until he meets Tsitsipas. And when he meets Tsitsipas, again, the difficulty for me with that matchup, Gordon's gone. But the difficulty for me with that matchup is basically that I would expect Federer to win usually indoors. I would say that's more his kind of surface.
Okay.
Well, Snize, I guess you're asking me questions.
Can you still hear me, Snize?
Yeah, we can still hear you. You just gone on. No, okay, he's back.
There he is.
That's it. Going to say the camera's gone a bit wonky. So Federer for you as well at 2.5, and using your words, not mine, a lock.
Well, as James suggested there, this is a tournament that Federer historically has just been incredibly dominant in. He's had no problems. The only players he's ever lost to here have been absolutely elite players, namely Novak Djokovic and Juan Martín del Potro. And looking at the draw, there's just not that many threats. He can meet Stan Wawrinka, which many see as a big name, and he played well in Antwerp. But we have to keep in mind that Federer is 17-0 against Wawrinka on hard courts. So in actuality, they'll probably play out as the normal head-to-head matchups. Federer is the best player in the draw. Historically, he's been incredibly dominant at this venue. This is the only hardcore tournament that is being played in Switzerland. So obviously, he really wants to show up here for his home fans. And yeah, there's just no reason to bet against him here.
But then you look at someone like Zverev at 7 on the outrights, and you think to yourself, he's fresh, he's in good form, that could be good value.
So the thing here, I was just about to make this point before, we're not going to get this price on Federer now. I don't know exactly what we will get. I'd hope we'd still get over evens, but Zverev's been knocked out, so he lost in the first round to Fritz. So hopefully people read my article beforehand and already backed Federer. But if you haven't, if you can still get sort of 2.2, 2.3, that's probably still a good bet with Zverev out in the other half, because he was, of course, the second favourite for the tournament. So,
okay, well, we'll move on then to Koppel. Rafa, can you put up the graphic for Koppel? Each way, is that 101? Did I write that graphic right? 101.
Yeah, another one at a big price.
Wow.
Yeah. So this is one of those ones where it kind of feels like when you look at the prices, they all look huge because you have obviously Federer at the top of the field. But I think in reality with Koppel, this is definitely a big price. Like in reality, this is where he does all his best work. Indoors is his surface. He played really well last week in Antwerp. He lost out to Murray, who was the eventual champion, in 3 tight sets. So he very, very much has the form to go well here. He's in the weakest part of the draw. He does have a very tough first round against Bautista, but Bautista's not a player who does his best work indoors. He hasn't looked that good recently, and he had an injury concern. So there's definitely a gap that could be open there. Now that Zverev's out, again, we're probably not going to get 100-1 when the markets reopen, that was a big plus. That's a big plus for Kopel now that Zverev's out, because that was the high seed in his half. He has Cilic and did have Zverev in his half before Zverev got knocked out, and he actually beat both of those two players en route to the final in Basel last year, where he then lost 7-6, 6-4 to Federer in what was a very respectable match. So he clearly enjoys it here. If he plays well and serves well, it's very difficult to break him. And yeah, very much goes well at these conditions.
And Snize, I look across again, and you've duplicated Koppel at 101.
Yeah, this, as James said, this price is just too big for a player of Koppel's indoor pedigree, who has all the weapons with the big serve, the really flat, powerful ground stroke that skid through the court to do some serious damage here. And especially now that he's also shown great form recently in making that deep Antwerp run, he's definitely one to count on here. It was a very, very close match that he played against Bautista Agut recently. He lost out to him, I think it was 7-5 in the third set when he met 2 years ago. But that was on clay, so this is a surface that's more favorable to Koppel, I would say. And Bautista Agut has had an abdominal injury lately and hasn't been in great form. So there's that. And obviously now Zverev is out, who he also beat. He beat Fritz en route to the final here last year. And looking at the other players in this half, I mean, it's kind of wide open. Cilic hasn't been in great form. Goffin hasn't been in great form. Opelka hasn't been in great form. Pair is out. Zverev is out. So it just looks wide open. And to have such a high price on a player that's capable is certainly valuable.
Okay, as we wrap up the outrights, we're saying if we can get Federer at 2.2, we should have a piece of it. Both of you?
Yeah.
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 Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I'd even bet him anything over even, even like 210s. He has more than a 50% chance to win this tournament.
Well, that's all you need to know. Okay. Bowl, best bets. Let's go to you, James. Cuevas, plus 4.5 against Wawrinka at 1.83.
Yeah, so again, this is one of those ones where you have a clay quarter. In fact, both of them really favour the clay, who actually goes surprisingly well indoors, but he doesn't play on it too often. And so I guess the stats just lag behind, because he's quite a big price against Wawrinka in general. I think he was 4.5 when I checked a minute ago. But for a few reasons, I prefer the games handicap. The first thing is we're getting a nice price from Boyle on this line. I think the next best price is 1.71. So that's always nice to take advantage of. But the key thing, if you look at it statistically, is they're both serve oriented. So Stan has held 85% and broken 21% over the last 2 years indoors. So those are clearly serve oriented stats. Cuevas has held 81%, broken 15% over the same time frame. So for both of them, generally betting on something close and serve oriented makes sense. The second thing, if you look at Cuevas, he actually does a very good job against the better players indoors, especially holding his own on serve. So the plus 4.5 has actually landed in 14 of his 19 matches, priced between 2 and 6 indoors against the top 50. So obviously, in general, he's been able to really push these guys. And in a lot of those cases, he's actually won the match. So you could take a chance on Cuevas just to win. But I have a slight issue in that I think Wawrinka played well last week in Antwerp. He didn't quite nick the title in the end, but he was clearly in decent form and was able to grind out a lot of close matches. Yeah, I mean, he basically, in the first match against Lopez, he won that in a deciding set tiebreak. And I can kind of imagine exactly the same dynamic happening with this match. He doesn't go well in Basel in general, though, his home event. He's got 11-13 record and a minus 31% ROI, which is really, really quite poor. But often he does dig it out and win matches when they're close. So of his last 50 matches, priced 1.2 to 1.99 indoors. So again, the kind of price range that he's at now, only 19 of his last 50 has he covered that handicap line. So again, that would make this a very clear bet. And the one head-to-head match was 6-4, 6-4 to Cuevas, and that was actually on clay, which is both of their favorite surface. But I would especially say, based on the overall stats that Stan really should be playing his best tennis on the clay, whereas Cuevas has consistently actually been fine indoors. So that for me is quite an impressive win for him in Monte Carlo, no less. So that's a very good win for Cuevas. And yeah, overall, I just would expect this to be tight. Probably something like 7-6, 6-3, 6-4, 6-4 would be a realistic worst case scenario if they both play as they have been.
And there'll be no reason maybe to go with Cuevas on the money line. But if you want to take the 4.5, it's available at 1.83 with Ball Sports. Snize, wrap us up. Krajanovic, -4.5 at 1.8.
Yeah, as you probably have noticed if you've been following along on Twitter and my articles through the Stockholm Open, Krajinovic is a player that I have fallen in love with here over the last couple of weeks. I think we batted him almost every single game, and we also had him outright to win Stockholm. And I think he's just a player that's very underestimated indoors. He described himself as playing his best career tennis last week in Stockholm, and it really showed. He came through really tough opposition, including Daniel Evans in 3 sets and Pablo Carreño Busta in 3 sets, former top 10 player there. And he's just very, very solid, fantastic baseliner, but he can also step into the court and hit and dominate the game with his big forehand. He has a deft touch at the net where he can finish points. And apart from that, he's just really good on clay as well, actually. And he'll face just that here in Las Loggete. It was actually quite an emotional year for him. Lost both of his parents, his mother a couple of years ago and his father this year, and he won Rio de Janeiro, his maiden title. But apart from that, we haven't seen anything from him. He's not good outside of clay. He has actually has losing records on all surfaces apart from clay throughout his career on all levels, and a 17-18 indoors record over the last 3 years. So not a good player in these conditions. These players have met 5 times actually, and Jerry did get the better of Krajinovic twice in 3 sets, but since then Krajinovic has dominated, and today's handicap would have come through in all of those matches. One of those was a matchup indoors in the Paris Masters where Krajinovic again covered this. Also, Laszlo's in a bit of a losing streak. He has lost 5 straight matches. Even on his preferred surface, clay, he's struggled as of late. And with Krajinovic playing great tennis right now and it being played indoors is a huge advantage. So I would expect him to come through with quite a bit spare.
Okay, well, we've got Federer around even money to win the whole tournament. I mean, I like that Krajanovic. Maybe even I'm going to stick it in with a bit of Jamstrenka in a little parlay as well. So -4.5 at 1.8 and Jamstrenka -2.5. So listen, lads, keep up the great work. Keep up them articles going. When we have you on, I'm going to be asking people prior to send in any questions. So if you're watching this video back and you want to ask some questions for the next tournament, get in early. I'll print them off and I'll ask them directly for the boys. Okay, listen, boys.
Perfect.
May the force be with you. Go well.
Cheers, man. Take care.
Cheers. That's James and that's Snize going over to tennis. Them boys really are on sizzle mode. Talking of sizzle mode, we're going to go to golf. Golf means Craig Edwards. Just love talking golf with this man. And this week we're going to Portugal. This is the Portugal Masters, Vilamoura, the Victoria course. Craig, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good, Flash. Good. I'm looking forward.
I can't hear Craig.
Some winners. Is that better?
Yeah, that's it. Did you mute yourself? Was it your fault or mine?
God knows. Could easily been mine.
Yeah, well, it's easier to blame others, Craig. Now, let me tell you, I know this course. I've walked it. I've played it. I've caddied it. And we talked last week about the French National being a bit of a hard course to go if the wind blows. This course, if the wind blows with the amount of water all over the shop, this is a tough track. Now, let me contradict. If it's benign, there's birdies and there's eagles everywhere you look.
Yeah, definitely, Flash. Last year, Oliver Fisham had got round in 59, didn't he? And they have made sounds from the club that they've tricked it up a bit this year, so it will be interesting to see. Plus, it's a bit later in the year this year. It's about 4 or 5 weeks later, so it's going to be a bit cooler. The ball probably won't travel as far. It will be interesting. I mean, normally this is a really good event to bet at, and but it's moved back this year, so we shall see.
Yeah, I mean, it is one of them courses where you've got people who really enjoy this type of swing. I mean, I know that the Algarve Pro Tour is just about to kick off at this time of year as well. So it's for those Portuguese and Spanish and Southern European players to try and gain some entries in like the Madeira Open, the Portuguese. You see quite a few Portuguese players here. A couple of them actually played with my son, and I walked around and watched them play when they were on the Algarve Pro Tour. So I'm cheering them on. I really am cheering on. The Algarve's a fabulous place to play golf. Millions of golf courses right along the coast. But if the wind blows, we are in trouble. Now, we're going to start off. Rafa, what do you want me to do here? Because we're having a few technical difficulties. Can you still do the graphics? You can? That's excellent. With 20 at 5.5, which is obviously 9-2.
Yeah, there's an interesting dynamic around Justin Walters this week. His best performance on the European Tour is a few years ago. He was second here. And he came here needing to retain his privileges. He'd had a poor season. Well, his mum had passed away during the season. And he came here and he grabbed second place with a massive long putt on the last that when David Lynn won. He's also got some other pieces of form here that suggest he really likes it. He does like low-scoring courses. We saw him at St Andrews shoot 63 in the Dunhill Links. Now, he was coming back to the golf at St Andrews after his father had passed away, so he's sadly got a similar dynamic this year. And again, he's on the cut line at 1-2-1 for the race to Dubai. So, 10th in the Italian Open 2 weeks ago suggests he's playing well again. And it's one of them things when someone passes away close to you, it can have two effects. It can either, usually with sportsmen, they probably stop practicing. And in general, the fear of losing tends to leave you for a bit. And instead of worrying about the result, you just go out there and play. And, you know, over different sports at different times over the years, players have produced their best results. In snooker, Dennis Taylor improved by about 3 blacks when this happened. And, I mean, it's just a strange circumstance that I think you just stop fearing. You've got no fear of losing anymore, and you just play the game for what it's worth. So
that's the word, Craig. That is the word. The fear.
Yeah.
The fear leaves you because the majority of them, some of them have the fear of actually succeeding, and that obviously holds themselves back. But in professional sport, as soon as you have no fear, you can free roll. You can play. I mean, what's the worst thing that can happen in his life? It's just happened. So let's just go out and let's play. And it's probably the only place that he's probably able to put them thoughts to the back of his mind and just do the thing that he's done all his life. Well, we'll stay with Justin Walters because you got him for top of the rest of the world each way at 21.
Yeah, I chose this market, a little bit of an easy one, because he's never won on the European Tour. He's only ever won on the South African Tour once. So I'm thinking a top 5 finish for him, and he will probably win this market. It's possible he could win this market with a top 10 finish as well. So just a small each way bet on top rest of the world, a good bet on the top 20. And I mean, if you're really feeling lucky, just have a very small each way bet at 125 as well. You know, strange things happen in sport. We saw it last week with Nicholas Colsaert, 7 years without winning. And, you know, sometimes there's a greater being, a sixth sense, if you like. And, you know, golf and snooker is so solitary, played in the mind that, you know, hopefully he'll be free rolling this week. Like you say, what's the worst that can happen? He can just bomb out.
Okay, here's another one I like. Stephen Gallagher, top 40 at 2.25. Steady Eddie.
Yeah, steady Eddie. I mean, and he can win as well, to be fair to him. I mean, I'm putting him up in top 40, but he actually knows how to win if he gets in the van. But he's got a lot of impressive form here. The last 2 weeks, he's played solidly without getting right to the top of the leaderboard. There's just every reason to bet him in the top 40. If you want to, you can bet him in the top 20. I think Betfred have him at 4-1. They pay full on ties and things like that. So that's a good bet. But the top 40 options available with Boyle Sports, Paddy Power and Betfair. And he looks a real good banker this week.
Okay, now we're all going to a couple of the local players. Pedro Figueiredo, top 40 at 5, which is obviously 4-1.
Yeah, again, if you wanted to go top 20, you could, but I would prefer top 40 for this particular player. Like you said, Flash, the Portuguese, they have a category where they invite certain ones of their players, and they'll have been the ones that's been performing well on the Algarve Tour. And before he was this is his first year on the main tour, and he's been on the Challenge Tour on and off. And the one thing you notice, he's got 3 top 30 or top 40 finishes here when he wasn't on the main tour. Now, spin the clock back 2 months in his statistics, he had a run of about 3 top 30 finishes. And his statistics suggested that he should have been finishing in the top 10. So I'm hoping back on his own course. He disqualified after the first round in Paris last week, so he missed the bad weather. I really think that with his local knowledge, as long as he gets off to a start, have a good bet top 40, maybe even have a smaller bet top 20 at 12-1 if you want.
Okay, and here's another one that's probably gone through exactly the same route. Ricardo Gouveia, top 20 at 6, which is 5-1.
Yeah, you barely would think of this guy anywhere else. He's been on and off the tour for years. But the last 2 seasons, he's gone here. He's made a top 10 finish out of nowhere. And, again, it's got local knowledge, going back home, sleeping in his own bed. And he did make the cut in France last week, which is something more than he has been doing. And, there's every reason to think that at least one of the 2 Portuguese players will place this week.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is with Ricardo, I always, not quite as rude as being like a flat track bully, but when he plays on the Algarve, one of the Algarve Pro Tours, or he plays on the Challenge, he's a bigger fish. As soon as he goes into the bigger events, it's almost as if they don't realise that par is now your friend. Now, on this course, in this environment, it's to make the cut. And obviously the crowds will pick up. And if we have a Portuguese player going deep into this tournament, then it's going to be great. Now, another player, and this player is so underrated, and I think we'll hear a lot more about him over the next few years. Bernd Riffhammer-each-way, top continental European at 75-1.
Yeah, 4 places. It's kind of a select market. Now, there's 2 types of players that tend to flourish here. There's the long hitters, because in general, the fairways are on the generous side, but it will rely on the conditions being benign. But he is a long hitter, and there is a little bit of a correlation with the results here and in the Porsche European Open, where he was second the other week to Paul Casey. And he was in the top 10 at Valderrama a few months ago. He's got 2 top 10s his last 10 starts. He's also had a 9th place finish here in 2015 when he wasn't a full member on the tour. So it's a long shot, and he often bombs out. And I have probably lost a few bob on this guy, but I'm going to throw a little bit more on him at 75-1 in this market.
You've got to. You've got to do that. But I mean, we do this, and the thing is about golf, there's probably no other sport that you must stick to your guns and have longevity. I mean, look at Kevin Na. 4 weeks ago, we said this bloke's whole mental attitude's changed. He will win again. He feels as if he should be winning. And he didn't do very well. I mean, I think he was like 25th in that week. 2 weeks later, you kept the faith, 80-1. So for me, that's like another 15 tournaments full of units because you kept the faith. Because how will you feel coming down the stretch on Sunday if he is in the van?
That's it. And you know the sort of players. I mean, in general, these players for the places aren't the sort of players that can stand up to the scrutiny. But I think this lad is capable of a big top 5 finish, and that will be enough to win this market, I hope.
Yeah, especially with the inspiration of the players that have been winning, like your Wiesberger, like your Colsarts. There's a massive trend at the moment for them Northern Europeans. For me, I think that him, top continental European at 76, that's massive. Let's go on to outrights. Tom Lewis, each way, 26, 25 to 1. And this boy is starting to think he belongs.
Yeah, well, this lad shut down at least 2 of my betting accounts last year. And he came here, he just turned a corner in his whole career. He won here as a rookie, and he's gone for years on and off the main tour. And people know he's got the talent. And then last year, about 4 weeks before, he suddenly started. His old stats and his results were sublime on the Challenge Tour. And he came here, and I tipped him at 66 to 1 first show, and I had probably my biggest bet of the year on him as well. And luckily, he outstayed Lucas Herbert down the stretch. Half the price this year, but the field is not as strong. So, and he's a more complete player. He's just won the Corn Ferry finals over in America to get his PGA card. I think the case with Tom Lewis is simple. If he gets in contention, we can be confident he'll win this week. But he may not get in contention because you've got to go low. I mean, if the weather's just anything like normal, you need to get to 20 under par to have a chance of winning this tournament.
100%. 100%. Okay, well, here's a boy who don't mind going low. Mikko Korhonen, each way, again at 26, 25 to 1.
Yeah, I've had him earmarked for this since last year. I did actually back him as well last year here. And he played very well, and he just fell away in the final round when he was pretty much going toe-to-toe with Lewis. He's got impressive form here. He's twice a winner on the European Tour at the Shot Clock Masters and this year at the Volvo China Open. The thing what I like about him is that he knows how to win like Lewis. I'm not one for these so many short prices, but I've got to say this week, I think these two stand out in good form and know how to win.
Okay, and Joachim B Hansen, each way 29, which is 28 to 1.
Yeah, now he's got pretty much a similar profile to Tom Lewis 12 months ago. His first full season on tour, though, this is. But he has been playing on the Challenge Tour. He won 3 times on it last year. And in his last 3 starts, he should have won. He could have won the French Open last week. He had a 9 in round 3. And he was still in front. He found himself in front on the last day and double bogeyed the 17th. So he's got that disappointment to get over, but I like him. And the thing what was eye-catching about him is when he didn't have full status on the main tour, he got a couple of starts here and played really well. So you've got to think he's in better putting form now. His whole game is better. And as long as he's got no hangover from last week, he can certainly get to 20 under par.
Yeah. Chris Paisley each way at 41.
Yeah, interesting dynamic with Chris as well. Similar to Justin Waters when he came here a few years ago, he was struggling to keep his card, and he played well here. And he's never really looked back. He's won an event on the European Tour since and become quite well established. And he has fallen away middle part of this season. I just noticed he played well last week, and I'm thinking, we're liking it here. Again, he's the sort of player that plays well at easy courses. So, I like him at 41, definitely this week, Flash.
Now, here's a player you'd like to have had your money on just for a 36-hole tournament, normally the first 2 rounds. Lorenzo Gagli each way, 226, 225 to 1. How often do you want the competition to end on the Friday night just before the cut?
Yeah, that's it. You do often. I mean, and if you're lucky, occasionally in golf, you will get the last round cancelled. It has happened to me a couple of times over the years. So I like this guy. I've been following him quite a while. Scottish Open, he plays superbly, and There's some Scottish Open form that ties in with here, and I was hoping Weisberger played this week, but he isn't, because he's obviously going to the higher tournaments now, and he always plays well in it. And the thing is, this is a guy again who's played well when he's not had a status on the tour card here, and going back up just over a month, he was second at Kranzer. With Rory McIlroy in a playoff to Sebastian Soderberg, I think. Now, Soderberg, I was hoping and praying he would play here because I thought he'd fit here. He's had a top 10 and he's chose not to. So this guy's my next best as a long shot. I think the correlation's there, and I just... he's had a second place finish, so his status is about safe. And I think he's worth a little go as our long shot this week. And the Italians are quite a strong force on the European Tour nowadays.
Okay, well, let's rewind the clock 7 days when we had Matthew Southgate at the National, and he withdraws. What was the reason?
I don't know, Flash, to be honest. I mean, he could be. He probably saw the weather forecast if you're lucky. I can't imagine it's anything too serious. He's here again this week. He's been playing a lot, and he does have some good form here. And going to that thing, what I mentioned, links golfers can play very well here, and he's a links golfer. So,
and that's the reason that I've put him in. Because I knew that if you're coming down the stretch on Sunday and the selection that we both wanted last week on a very, if the wind blows here, the Golf National in France and your links golf with your low ball flight, this is a course that he's going to do well. And I couldn't do it to you. I couldn't let you give me all these selections. And the one that we were so happy with last week turns up. How often does it happen? And he goes and wins. So he's on the list. Matthew Southgate, each way on the outrights at 40-1.
Yeah, I like it. I do like it. And to be truthful, I looked at him this week, and I'm probably thinking, well, I just don't know if he's got an injury last week or he's just decided, I'll just travel straight to Portugal and take my chance. And I'm like you. It's a funny event, this, because like you said at the start of the show, Flash, if the course plays a little bit difficult and the conditions a little bit harder and the winning score drops down to somewhere between 15 and 20 under, I could imagine him winning. He would be my idea of the winner. When you have to start showing a little bit of craft more in the conditions, then he is definitely the player that, you want to be on.
Well, there's a lot of water around the greens. There's a lot of water down the sides, off the tees. There's them shots that you play on links golf because if the wind blows and it becomes firm, then you have to actually bounce the ball in. You maybe have to take it maybe 5 or 6 yards from the green and let it release up. So for me, I like links, and I'm going with Miko as well. I do like my two for you from your list is Miko each way at 25s and Southgate each way at 40s.
Yeah, I mean, I did consider Padraig Harrington, who would fit the same mould as well, and he has played well here in the past. So, it's a funny course. It can depend slightly on the year's weather, whether it's a bit colder and what have you. But I like both Southgate and Cahonan definitely, and there's a certain type of player in general does well here.
Yeah, well, let's hope we've nailed the winners. And remember, the way that Craig does his business is you can have a player that comes 15th, 20th, 25th, 35th. But if you put them in the right category, then you have your winners. So, and also you've got 4 days worth of value. Craig, you are top man. I look forward to speaking to you again soon. We'll soon be getting into the snooker season. I always think that when we get to November, December, it's time for the British Masters. And it's just an unbelievable time. And I know you'll be finding value there.
Definitely, Flash. Dark Knight's here now, and the UK Championship's not far around the corner, and the Champion of Champions in a couple of weeks. So there's going to be plenty of snooker to talk about in the coming months.
Well, I look forward to it. You keep up the great work, and we'll be going hand in hand in Vilamoura. Spent many day on the golf courses in Vilamoura. Let's hope a little bit of knowledge pays off for us. Good luck, mate.
Yeah, thanks, Flash, and you.
No worries at all. So that's the Portuguese Masters all sorted for the weekend. Love Vilamoura, love Portugal, and hopefully one of the boys will come out trumps and we'll make some money. Also, remember, Federer around 2.2 to reign supreme again in Basel, Switzerland. And we've got the Chinese girls in Zhuhai. Tomorrow, La Liga, Bundesliga and Serie A. So all the team will be back. Until then, I'll see you soon.
Nice one, Flash.